Okay, so I have a bit of a rant about all of this gray market Retatrutide that we're constantly hearing about, whether it's on social media or it's on YouTube or a podcast. You'll constantly hear these influencers talking about not just how amazing Retatrutide is, which I totally agree with them, it is. The clinical data has shown that it's a miracle drug, but about how amazing it is for their clients and all these people that are taking it and experiencing the benefits of it on the gray market. I'm here to tell you that this is utter bogus lies, deceit. I don't know what to call it. Like, these are people who are clout chasing and attempting to appear that they know way more than they do. So, why do I make that claim? Well, first, let's just say that I would be extremely happy if Retatrutide was readily available to everybody seeking it because I truly believe it is a miracle drug. It's probably one of the first longevity products that will actually reduce all-cause mortality, help people live longer lives. So it's an extremely important product. It's basically a solution to metabolic disease. Um, Even beyond that, it's improving or completely eliminating visceral fat on key organs. It's an extremely impactful drug, and I want it to be available for everybody at an affordable price. Why do I think it's bogus? Well, first, if you go try to find one of these distributors of Retatrutide, you can find it through different ways. Like if you search, you'll find some gray market, like research grade chemical websites, and they'll tell you that they have Retatrutide, and you can see it there. Or you can go on to some of these forums and you can find contacts for these peptide manufacturers, most of which are based out of China. And if you contact them, you can get these order sheets that will list, an entire catalog full of peptides, and Retatrutide will be one of them. They'll give you different sizes, and it'll be like 10 vials of 10 milligram Retatrutide for $110. Just think about that. How amazing would that be to be able to get nearly a year's worth of Retatrutide for $100? Like right now in the U.S. and probably most Western countries, if you want a single month of even the prior generation of tirzepatide, it'll run you between $200 and $400 fairly easily, maybe even more depending on where you're getting it from. The compounded stuff alone is $200 to $400. So it annualizes to somewhere in the ballpark of $3,000 to $5,000. And you're telling me I can buy it for $100 from a Chinese peptide manufacturer? That sounds amazing. Maybe almost too good to be true. Okay, so what am I getting when I order from them? I'm getting a case of 10 vials with a handwritten sometimes label on it, or maybe even a printed out sticker, and a white powder in a vial. If I contact these people, they'll even sometimes provide a certificate of analysis. Okay, well, I have a background in biopharma, beyond being a scientist, and I totally understand. Like, you're not going to get the same type of GMP treatment for your cheap peptides that you are for a standard GMP product in the West, and I think that's the thing that we're going to accept when we're taking a gray market peptide, and so there's going to be some leeway, some wiggle room. Okay, well, what's on there? Like, what did they actually test? I've looked at dozens of these individual suppliers and gray market websites. And I've also looked at the third party testing facilities that they're using. All I can see that they test is the total mass of that white powder, which could be virtually anything. And they do also have some HPLC data for the purity of that white powder. So you know that you have a mass that corresponds to the vial and that you have something that has fairly high purity. It tells you nothing about identity. They have no standards that correspond to the actual material of bona fide Retatrutide. So there's no way that they could use HPLC as anything that's approximating identity. So it is really a mysterious white powder that's fairly pure, according to their HPLC. I think the other thing, even beyond just that they did these tests, you are totally trusting this person who has, no reputation to protect. There's like a catalog number whenever they're doing this testing that it's getting submitted to their third-party lab, whether it's the Yashnik or one of these other ones, and you can search the tests on there to validate, okay, there was a material by a certain catalog number that was sent there, but there's no way to know that the material that you have in your hand is actually part of that batch. You're just taking their word for it, which, yeah, there's going to be a lot of trust in this whole gray market area, but there's just so many layers of disbelief that need to be suspended to even believe that you have anything even approaching Retatrutide. Retatrutide is a 39 amino acid peptide that I believe it's on like the 17th residue. It has a lysine that has a AEAA linker that is conjugated to a C20 diacid, and that C20 diacid is there to give the peptide its half-life. So normally a peptide will get filtered out by the renal system. They're fairly small molecular weight. They're a few thousand Daltons. And without having something that interacts with a carrier protein like albumin, they just get filtered out in the renal system. So that's critical. It's not negotiable. So what I need to feel comfortable that they actually are getting something that is representative of that type of material? Obviously, bona fide Retatrutide is going to come from Eli Lilly, so they're not getting Eli Lilly material, but are you making something that you would expect to have the potency on the GLP, GIP, and glucagon receptors that Retatrutide has? And I think there's almost zero chance of that. I think in the best case scenario, they're getting either semaglutide that's labeled as tirzepatide, or maybe, they're getting semaglutide that's labeled as Retatrutide, or they're getting tirzepatide that's being called Retatrutide. But I think there's virtually no chance that they're getting the triple incretin agonist. It's not impossible. Somebody could be making it. It's not an impossible molecule to make. It's actually fairly straightforward through the solid phase peptide synthesis that these labs are very familiar with. I just don't think that any of them are making it, or at least I think the majority of them are fake, which means that the majority of what people are buying is fake. And you can even see it on these forums that people are complaining that they're taking it and it's working at first, but they're just not getting as much appetite suppression as they're expecting, or like they're kind of plateauing in their weight loss. And I'm here to tell you that, like, if you look at the clinical data for the Retatrutide study, over 68 weeks, people are losing 30% of their overall body mass. Like, and that is happening throughout the dosing period. It is a miracle product. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. One of the studies was showing that they were having like a 85% reduction in hepatic fat. So for fatty liver disease, incredible. People should not be seeing plateauing after a few weeks or months. So yeah, I mean, all that is just to say that this is not Retatrutide. I would be happy if it was. I'm not here to tell people what they can and can't take and buy from gray market websites. That's none of my business. It's up to you and your individual autonomy to decide what you want to research. But I think that my advice to people would really just be that save your money. I don't think that you're getting the products that you think you are. I think you're better off being sure that you're getting something that's giving you some marginal benefit than getting some sketchy material that is God knows what, and it's contaminated with God knows what. Yeah, I guess I'd be really curious to hear everybody else's thoughts. Maybe I'm being too negative on the research chemical space, but I'm not a believer.